One particular memory that I have that's somewhat apropos of Halloween, which just passed in the last couple of weeks as of the time of this recording for me, and highly relating to this sucker right here, this shirt, my round the house sort of air quotes junk shirt, in that I don't want to make fresh laundry that needs to be done every single day. In the apartment complex I live, it actually costs money to use the washer and dryer, so the least amount of concurrent dirty laundry that needs to be piling up, the better. So I wear this shirt around the house primarily. Batman, my usually second all-time favorite superhero, although One Punch Man. That's all I'm saying. Kind of knocking Batman back a peg, But one memory in particular was of this year where I was going to be Batman for Halloween, and I had a full body Batman costume, which consisted of black jogging pants, boots, sort of a Batman shirt like this, but with long sleeves, and the cowl. It was interesting. The cowl was, while the whole outfit was kind of based on the motif of the 1989 Tim Burton Batman, all black with just the yellow symbol on the chest, and it was actually kind of big like this one, although it wasn't faded, pre-faded or otherwise. But the cowl was kind of like a mesh between what you might get with the 1960s Adam West Batman. It was actually a fabric cowl, and it still had sort of the long ears. They, were flopping around because they were so long. They're very thinly, made out of fabric. But I thought it was really cool and interesting. Of course, the cape and everything was a separate piece as well. And I remember being so excited that, I was in, I think, elementary school or middle school at the time. No, in fact, it was elementary school now that I'm thinking of it. And I actually snuck to school like the week of Halloween when I had this costume. I brought the cowl around. I carried it around everywhere because I was so uber stoked that I was going to be Batman. I mean, at the time, Batman was the thing, This wasn't too long after the 1989 movie, and may have been just before, Batman Returns, which I also love. So, I mean, it was like a little piece of home having to go to school. You hate going to school. I used to sneak like Micro Machines cars in, and or like an eraser I had in the shape of Barney Rubble, and like aspects of things that were akin to my fandom, that were very much part of my personality, and things that I loved outside of school, just to have a sense of I'm not going to die in school. The end of the world is not going to culminate while I'm in school. I'll still have something, a through line to that part of me I leave at home, And so I brought this cowl to school. And at some point on the way home, on the bus ride home, it had like slipped out of my backpack or my Trapper Keeper, whatever it was that I had at the time. And it, completely freaked me out. I was going to have an embolism. I was like so psychotically, like nervously looking around, looking under my bus seat and everything like that. And lo and behold, as I get off the bus, crushed, just penultimately depressed, I lost this cowl. There's no way I was going to get another one. We didn't have money. I couldn't buy another costume. It was a day or two away from Halloween. Lo and behold, I find this younger kid, I think it was like in fourth grade, and he was in like third grade or something like that. But he was noticeably younger. I stood a full like foot and a half taller than him. He comes excitedly up to me as we're walking home. He lives a block away. And he's like, "Oh my God, you got to see what I found on the bus, blah, blah, blah." It's the cowl. And I just like almost lost it. I'm like, "Oh, that's actually mine. I lost it." And he starts in with the finders keepers shit and whatever. And it just, I was like, I was really, I was going to lunge at this kid. I was going to take his head off if I needed to. I didn't need to, because of the sheer towering over him. I got very dramatic. I got very up in his face. I was like, "It is mine. I lost it. I can't afford to get another one. You will give it to me." I ripped it out of his hand. And in his struggling to pull back, it let slip, and he fell on his ass. Now, conveniently enough, 3 other people, a girl and a couple other kids, see this from far away. They have no idea what the exchange has to do with. Suddenly, I'm the bad guy. I'm the bully. I'm trying to get my property back, something that really just speaks to the heart of me, to my passions, to my love of life, comic book, culture, geek culture, all this kind of stuff. Because I'm trying to take my property back and this kid won't have it. And he falls. Suddenly, I pushed him. And I am chased down at this point by these other kids completely as like I bullied this kid, like I attacked this kid. And I remember because where we lived at the time, there were woods all around the houses and everything in between the blocks. I ran into the woods, and I used to spend a lot of time in the woods, like off by myself, hanging out with friends, so I could navigate them fairly well, whereas other people couldn't and couldn't get through, weren't willing to, and it was one of those things where like I actually stayed in the woods for a solid 15, 20 minutes. I got home late to the point where, my mother was like freaking out, like, where the hell were you? I knew what time the bus was going to drop you off. What was going on? And I'm relating the story to her and everything. It gets to the point where the parents of this kid actually call the school, and I don't go to school the next day. It's like Thursday or Friday of that week. I'm like, forget it. I can't deal with this because I know some kind of shit's going to start. They're going to say, I bullied this kid. I knocked him on his ass. I hit him, whatever it is. I was chased by these other kids just because of a freaking Batman costume. So my parents get a call. They have to explain the entire affair. This kid finally admits that not that he stole it, but like, he found it on the bus. It wasn't his. I came to him, and the first thing I said was, hey, that's mine. I wasn't aggressive. I said I lost it. I was worried about it. He fell on his ass. The kid finally had to admit it. He owned up to it. So most of the scenario was fine. As I would see those other kids, they still treated me like I was the asshole. Even after learning it was my property. Oh, it doesn't matter. You're just a small kid. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever. And, I didn't go as Batman for Halloween. I didn't bother. I don't even remember if I dressed up. If I did, I think I dressed up as something completely different. Just because it completely ruined my whole mood and my happiness, my joy, and everything like that. And that lasted for an entire year, where the next year was going to be my last year in that elementary school, I think. And or my sister had entered that elementary school at that point, and they were having a big Halloween sort of festival the next year. And then finally I pulled out this Batman costume, and I finally went. I like confronted the demons of that scenario. And it was the most awesome experience I had, because looking back on it, the cowl did not look anything like the 1989 Tim Burton Batman. The costume didn't. I mean, again, it was like a mesh of taking elements from what the 60s Adam West version was and the Tim Burton 89 version. And it was all cloth, everything like that. And I didn't even have like, gauntlets. I just had sort of like gardening gloves and whatever. They were brown. Didn't even go with the rest of the motif. But even then, there were all these like first and second graders, because I was tall and I looked older than I was for a lot of my early years. I mean, I was like 15 and I looked 20, put it that way. All of these kids were like awestruck at me, like, just, it's Batman. And like they were being serious. Like they really thought I was Batman. And like it just, at least for me, I kind of could understand what it is, what the attraction is about dressing up in a costume like that. But also, and I kind of had a similar thing when the first time I ever, in the Blues Brothers act that I and a couple of friends had done a while back, a long time ago. I've told that story before. The first time we ever walked around a mall in full Blues Brothers attire, just the reactions the reactions I got being Batman, for all intents and purposes, these kids thought it was really Batman. And I think I even gave a couple autographs to a couple of them, if I remember correctly. It was so long ago. But I mean, it completely and utterly made up for the ruined experience of the year before. where I was made out to be this bully of this little kid. I'm somebody who I've stood up to bullies. A couple of times I kicked the bully's ass. A couple of times I went away crying. Um, I began to see how meaningless other people's opinions of you are, and whether or not you are willing to throw your fists around and all that kind of stuff. Be tough, have that bravado, have something to prove, how meaningless all that is. And I'm not a fighter. I would prefer not to be. I have when I've needed to, but I prefer not to be. To be sort of almost, categorized as a bully, as somebody beating on little kids and stuff like that. It's so against my nature. It's so spoiled, rotten my whole mood, and tested. It's one of those things that spurred on the first of three phases in my life where I tried to put away the childish things. I got rid of all of my action figures and collectibles, my comics, movie posters, all that kind of stuff because of moments like that. And to have it go 180-degree turn the next year and be so welcoming and be so refreshing and be so fulfilling was a shock and a surprise to me at that point. I'd already gotten to the point where I was like questioning, is Halloween even viable anymore? Should I even be bothering with it? I'm growing up. I shouldn't dress up anymore, and it's childish and all these things. And but as it turned out, it took a very negative scenario and made it that much greater, made it that much more positive, and it was kind of a reawakening, you know, for that love. And it's again one of three occasions throughout the history of my life where things took a dark turn and I thought I needed to be rid of all these, childish things, these childish holdovers. And I was listening to other very poorly inspirational people around me, and a couple of them were actually highfalutin Bible thumping religies and everything like that, as my sister and I call them. Um, and yeah, so it's like it's amazing how back and forth your psyche, your interpretation on the world, your interpretation on who you are and the things you like can sometimes be affected for better or for worse by people around you. And so yeah, that's just one of my many stories about Halloween's gone awry, and in this case, a very Batman centric one. And but Batman v Superman's coming out. The world has proved geekdom to be something that ain't going away, that isn't, stupid, and no matter what your age, you can love Doctor Who, Star Trek, horror movies, all these different things, comic books, and everything like that. Just a matter of who you are and being true to that. And I guess I'm sort of living proof that it'll pay off in the end if you stick to it.